information. Alright, so for circle, we have a circle. A whole chapter on them. Okay. For a circle, we're going to be looking for the radius. When we look at a radius of a circle, how far across the circle does a radius go? Does it go the whole way, halfway, halfway? Good. So for our radius, we're going to go from the center to the edge. Doesn't matter which direction it goes, but it's center to edge. That is my radius. I'm going to use yellow for my radii today. Anytime I do a radius, I'm going to use yellow. Okay, and our formula is A equals pi r squared. Okay, and don't forget that R stands for radius. Alright, the other thing we're doing today, this is if I have a whole circle. The other thing is if I have a circle sector. What does that word sector kind of look like to you, or when you think of a sector? Like a section? So part. So this is part of a circle. So I only want to know just part of the circle, not the whole thing. So when I look at this, I'm going to have a circle. And part of it might be shaded in or bolded, telling us which part to look at. So if I'm looking at this part here, I need to figure out how can I find the area of just that part of the circle. So I'm going to say A equals, I'm going to leave a little space here for a moment. Eventually, I will need to know my pi r squared, where I'm using that radius. But in the meantime, I need to know how much of the circle am I using. And what do I know about a total circle? 360, so it's out of 360 degrees. So if I know this over 360 times pi r squared, good choice. Alright, you're going to get a glue in. This glue in you shouldn't have to cut apart. You can just go ahead and glue in. It's 4 problems that we're going to do. So go ahead and just glue that in below this. These are going to be your most important things today for your formulas. And we're just going to practice this a little bit. So go ahead and glue that in. Pass those glue sticks around. Every table should have at least 2 glue sticks. Glue in. So I'm just gluing that in. Make sure the top is the top and the bottom is the bottom so you can actually read it. But otherwise you're just gluing it in. You don't need to cut it. No need to cut today. Just go ahead and glue it in. When you put your glue cap on, please make sure that your glue stick is all the way down. Roll it down so it's not sticking up, otherwise it's a little ruined. Alright, about 15 more seconds, get that glued in. And we're going to start on this first one. Alright, here we go. So for this first one, I'm going to just write my formula again because it's just nice to know what I do. What do I need? I have area equals pi r squared. Let's got some glue there. So I need to figure out what is my r. That's the only thing that I need to find, my radius. So where on my circle is going to be my radius? Yeah, this one. Is this 2.9 a radius? Yeah, 2.9 is radius. It goes halfway. So in my calculator, I'm going to do pi. And then for my radius, I'm going to put in 2.9. And then that's squared. Now, again, what's really important is making sure that you have those. You can reach that one. Okay, if you're using not your Desmos calculator, that you are taking your time and making sure you get the right answer. This one, especially with that squared, I would make sure to use Desmos. Pi is this one here right next to the 4. We're going to use that pi, parenthesis, times 2.9, parenthesis, and then the squared is the a squared there. All right, today your homework is going to ask you to round to the nearest tenth. So that's just one decimal point. So if I have this 26 point round, do I want to keep it at 26.4 or go to 26.5? What tells me to stay at the 4? Good. The next number is a 2. What number tells me when do I need to round up? When it's 5 or bigger. Good. So 26.4. It's area. So how do we label area? Square yards. Thanks, John View. All right, number 2. We got this one. Again, our formula for that circle is A equals. Are we finding the whole circle or just part of it? We're actually going to find the whole circle. I know it looks like we're cutting that circle in half, but the whole circle is shown there. So A equals pi r squared. We need to find the radius. That's all we need for this formula. And then we just have to make sure we're plugging it into our calculator correctly and making sure that we round correctly. So is 14 my radius? And the last problem, we just used the 2.9. We plugged it in. We were done. Do I just plug in 14 and we're done? No. What's the radius in this case? Yeah, half of it. I only want middle to the outside, and that 14 covers the whole thing. So I'm going to take 14, and how do I find half of 14? We divide by 2. What's 14 divided by 2? 7. Good. So this is really 7 here. That helps you to label it. So we're going to have pi, or A equals pi times my radius, 7 squared. So identify what you're given. Are you given the radius? Are you given a diameter? And then throw it into the formula and throw it into your calculator. Pi times 7 squared, we get 150.93804. So nearest tenth, when you see that, means just one decimal. So are we going to keep this at 153.9 or go to 154.0? Yep, we keep it at the 9. That 3 afterwards tells me to stay at the 9. So 153.9. And it's square. What does cm stand for again? Cm is centimeters. Wonderful. All right, this next one, we're going to be finding the area of the sector. So it's kind of this bolded part. I'm going to take a second to use my green and actually shade that in. In your practice today, it's going to say find the area of the shaded region, and it'll be actually yellow, which will be the shaded part. We're going to use green here. You can use whatever color if you want. But we're finding only this part. So for our formula, if you want to recopy the formula down, it's A equals x over is the whole circle times pi r squared. So we need to know what is my degree and what is my radius. So how many degrees is shaded in there? 135. If it was the other part, what if I wanted to find the white area? How could I find the other degree? 360 minus 135. Good. But in this case, I'm doing the green. So I'm going to take that 135 out of 360. So that's just the part of the circle I want. And then I want my radius squared. Is my radius 135 also? No, my radius is 12. Good. At this point, it's just about making sure we put it in the calculator correctly, because with that pi, we're probably not going to do that in our heads. So 135, and we can do divided by for that fraction. 360 times pi times 12 squared. We get 169.6460033. So we're going to keep it, when we round, do we keep it at 169.6 or do we change it to 169.7? Keep it at the 0.6. Good. You guys are crushing that rounding. 169.6 degrees. Square inches. So almost 170 squares could actually fit into that green area if we split it up into 12 parts and we like made little squares. Crazy. Alright, we have one more problem left. One that has multiple shapes. Because this isn't just a circle. Look back at 11.1b if you need to. What's our something that has more than one shape? Good, a composite figure. So this is a composite figure. So if you see that in your directions to find the area of the composite figure, composite just means we have more than one shape that we need to find. So let's take a look at this first and decide how is this made. What kind of shapes do you see here? Okay, is it a square though? Rectangle and a half circle. Is this half circle, are we going to add that onto the rectangle? Are we taking it away? We're taking it away. It's like I took a piece of paper and I cut out this piece. What tells me that that piece isn't really there? What line? The dotted line. You totally got it. That good. We have that dotted line. That dotted line tells us it's like invisible. It's not actually there, but it's there to help us find our measurements. Okay. So first, let's find the area of that rectangle. How do we find an area of a rectangle? What's our formula? Base times height. Good. And what is our base and our height? 14 times 20. Thanks. My ears aren't as good as they used to be. Okay, so I have 14 times 20. We can just use a calculator for that. Doesn't even have to be Desmos. 14 times 20. And we get 280. Okay, we don't need to label quite yet because that's not going to be my final answer. I'm going to just box that with red, showing that that matches. All right, so someone earlier told us it was made out of a rectangle, and then what do we? half of a circle, not quite the whole circle. So we have this half circle. Okay, does anyone remember, what do we call a half circle? Semicircle, wonderful. Alright, for the semicircle, what we're going to do first, and I'm just doing it the way that it's like in your practice, is we're going to find the area of the whole circle first. So let's just do area of pi r squared. So in that semicircle, I need to know what is my radius. So as I look at that circle, what part of the circle is labeled, 20 or 14? The 14. Is 14 the radius? Gabby's shaking her head no. What is 14 when it goes the whole way across? What? Diameter, yeah. So I only want to find halfway across. So what's 14 divided by 2? 7. Hey, you guys, guess what? We already did this one. Pi times 7 squared. We did that one back up here. Right there. We already have an answer. Amazing. 153.9. Okay, but that's for a whole circle. And how much of the circle did we need to find? Do that. How can I find half of 153.9? I could multiply by a half. Either way, we get the same answer. I would divide by 2. That's how my brain works. So 153.9 divided by 2. $76.95. I'm just going to keep it like that for now. I'm not going to round it quite yet. I'm going to circle that in blue, or box it in blue so I know it matches with my shape. Alright, now for the final answer here, we have to combine these because it's a composite. So when we combine these ones, we talked about this earlier when we were visualizing this shape. When we combine it, are we adding them together, subtracting them, subtracting? What again? Someone other than Michael, because I know he's got it. How do we know that we're subtracting? How do we know we're taking this out? Yeah, the dashed line. Good. That dashed line tells us it's not really there. We're cutting it out. If we were adding it on, it would actually have to go to the end. It would look like kind of like a basketball free throw line. So we're going to subtract them. So which one do I start with? Yep, 280. Good. We start with that rectangle. And then we're going to take away that semicircle. So am I going to take away 153.9 or 76.95? Good, 76.95. So 280 minus 76.95. We get 203.05. So if I want to add to the nearest tenth, will I keep it at 203.0 or 203.1? Good, 203.1. And we do want a label here. Tomorrow for our warm-up, we're going to talk about why labels are so important. Okay. What is our label in this one? Are we measuring it in feet, inches, degrees? Inches. Not just inches. Square inches.